Hi, it's Andrew Wheeler, and this is the second video in a series, Blender4Dental. I hope you enjoyed the last video, starting right from scratch. This one runs along the same sort of lines, only this one we're going to import an upper and a lower in occlusion. We're going to align the scans, trim them, put a base on them, and then work through the hollowing feature and just show you guys what sort of hollowing options we've got and how that all works. I'm going to whip through the first bits because I want to try and keep these videos as short as possible. And since we've already done it in the first video, you'll see a lot of sort of repetition on it. It's no bad thing. Have a look at it again. The more you do, the more times you practice this, the easier and the quicker it will get. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the demo models that Blender have supplied. We know the scans are good, and they're good scans to work on and practice. So these are found if we go into the import STL, and if we look on our C drive, you'll see the B4D folder. Work your way down to the model designer. If you've only got the model designer on it, that's all you're going to see. Double click on that, and then we've got sample models. And there we have the upper and the lower. These models are good. We'll work on these a lot because these are good models for removable dies and playing around with. Okay, so we're going to highlight and we're going to import both of these. Click on one and then press Shift, hold Shift down and click on the other. You'll select both and then click on Import. I'll do the keystrokes again like I did on the last video, so you'll just to remind you. So here we have it, an upper and a lower model. This is exactly the sort of scene you're going to get if you're bringing in models from an intraoral scan. And we'll go through the same process on each one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to align them and name them. So as you can see, we've both got, both scans have got an outline. The one we're going to be working with first is the upper. So we make sure it's just the upper that's highlighted. And we're going to click Enter Target as we did before. Now, the last video, because it was only the one model, that's all we did. This one now we've got an upper and a lower. So we've done the Enter the Target for the upper. We're going to highlight the lower and then click on Name Opposing. So now you can see when we slip from one to the other, we've got the target in the naming field there. We click on the lower and then we've got opposing. So we know that we've named our models correctly. So what we'll do now is we'll click the link flip button. Now what this does is it just automatically puts the model up in a position where we can put those 4 points down that we did last time. This model is a lot nicer. All the teeth are in the right place, so it aligns a lot better than the last model we did. But the principle is all still the same. What we're going to do is we're going to align, we're going to put 4 points down, so in a trapezoid fashion like we did last time. So if you remember, we're going to highlight the model, and no, we're not going to highlight the model, we don't need to. So we're going to put a point down by Shift and right click, and there you'll see, you'll put a cursor down, press P, and we'll put a point. So Shift, right click, and then P on the keyboard. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move down back to our 7s and put a point on the mesial buccal cusp of the 7s. So once we've got the 4 points down there, what we do is we go back and we'll click Align. What will happen is the model that has been automatically hidden from view will come back in, and we've now positioned the models in the correct axis. Now, as you can see there, it's upside down. As I said last time, we're going to flip it around the y-axis and into the correct position. And then remember to lock the models together. So this way we can hide one, hide another, and they still remain in occlusion. Okay, so there we have the models. The next stage is we're going to trim them. Right, so we're going to now trim both models and make them look pretty. Doesn't really matter which one you start with. So what we'll do is we'll start by hiding the lower, just because it allows us a bit more freedom on the screen, we're going to put our point down like we did before, which is shift right click and move down to the arch cut. We'll click arch cut and extrude, and then we'll work around the scan. Quick reminder, as I said last week, just put a few more points down over the areas where we've got a bit more of a contour, and then as you go round the smoother bits, you can then put less down. These models actually can easily be based without doing arch cut. And you'll find that some, especially from, I think Itero is one of the ones that when you receive the files, they actually look quite nice. The files have already been sort of played around with. You can literally put a base directly on them. You don't have to worry about this side, this bit. Okay, so you fuse the models. We'll click the trim and highlight one of the vertices so it knows which side, which part of the scan it wants to keep. And there you can see we've got a nice arch cut. We'll scroll down to the bases, click on upper base, and wait for it to do its thing. And there you see an upper base. Okay, so that's the upper done. Something I skipped over very quickly is hiding and unhiding models. If you highlight the model and you press H on the keyboard, it hides it. If you want to bring them back, Alt, hold down, and H, and it brings them back. Okay, it's a really good feature. Otherwise, you end up getting lots and lots of stuff on the screen. So now we've done the upper, we're going to trim the lower. So we highlight the upper, press H to hide it, and then we can then trim the lower. So we're going to highlight the lower, put our cursor down by holding down the Shift key, right mouse button, and then find the arch cut, extrude, and work our way around the lower. The next video I'm going to do, I'll do the all about the scans and the quality of scan, how we manipulate the scan, and trimming and playing around with vertices and edges and faces. As I said, I'm trying to get these as short as possible so they take up as little time in everybody's life. Right, so there we have it. We'll click Fuse to join the line, click Trim, highlight the vertex, or, well, there we've got a face. I'm not sure that really makes much difference. It doesn't. And there we have a nice trimmed lower. We'll put a lower base on. Normally I do borders, but won't worry about that now. And there we have the lower. Okay, so bring back the upper. So we're going to Alt and H, and there we have two upper and lower model all based. You can see how quick you can actually do this. If you know your scans are good, you can whip through this stage. It really doesn't take more than a minute to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to hollow, and we're going to spend a bit of time with the hollow feature and go through the different options that we've got here and how to use it. What we're going to do, we're going to start with the lower for a change. So we'll hide the upper, so highlight and H. It is possible to hollow both models at the same time, but for the purpose of this, let's just keep it simple and do one at a time. So there we have the lower model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold the Shift and middle mouse wheel to reposition it. So I've got it in a nice position. What I've done is I've angled it at 45 degrees so I can see the base. If you sit like that, you won't really know whether the base is open or not. So I've placed it in that position for a reason. Make sure the model's highlighted, and then we go to the hollowing tool tab. So we'll click the Make Hollow. What will happen now is a wireframe box will appear. You know you're in the hollow mode when this comes up. And here we can see at the bottom, it's probably my video is actually in the way of this, but there's some very good tooltips here that's worth noting. The way Blender uses dimensions is a little bit different from how other CAD software does. So they've put down here a very useful scale in which to adjust. So if you're making a hollow model, you can adjust the thickness, the wall thickness of the model. Now, what I'll do is I'll go through the hollow option first. First of all, we're going to do the thickness. So we click thickness, and here we have a scale. Okay, so this is the scale that we need to change. Now 0.150, if you look on the bottom tooltip, oh, we're nearly there. It equates to 1.1 millimeters thickness. Now, in my experience with the printing, it's too thin, and I struggle to get them off the build plate without them cracking. So what personally, for me, I like a more chunky model. So I always end up with the 3.5 millimeters, 0.4. So we will open that up. We will then change this to 0.4, and that will then, after it's done its thing, set the wall thickness to 0.4. Which it doesn't really want to do. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. There we go. That was probably my fault there. Right, anyway. Okay, so that's now set and then the thickness. So we'll then click on hollow. And as you can see, what will happen, as I said before, when it's grayed out, don't keep clicking things, it's working on it. And as you could see then, sometimes the algorithms take a bit longer to work than other times. So we'll wait for that to happen. Then what will happen is we can then adjust the base, and you can see there where the hollowing starts. So what we'll do is we'll click on the little blue arrow and pull the blue arrow down. And there you can see the base is being exuded down. Now if you keep going, it covers it back up again. So we'll pull that back in and expose the hollowed model. Okay, so once you've got the model hollowed out, all we'll do then is click apply, and then that sorts out the model. Alt H to bring the upper back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to highlight the lower, press H to hide it, angle the model again so we can see the base on it, highlight the base, and then we're going to click make hollow. Now for this one we will use one of the other options. We've got three others: honey, solid, honey vented, and gyroid. The honey vented is the one I generally go for. I like the design of it, and this is quite the nice part about Blender. You've got a lot of options you can play with here, and make your models a little bit more individual from the next guy. So there you can see we've got the honeycomb inside of the model. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, you do have to be a bit slow when you're pulling the arrow up and allow the model to be created as you go. Another interesting fact, here you can see these voids. We had a few issues with printing on the printer that we used with these voids. We didn't really know why we were getting problems with the printer until we realized that actually we were pulling that base down. There you can see it's now filled up. The voids are there. Now we can also move that up slightly more, make the base a bit thicker before, again, like the other one, it then closes over. Okay, so we'll move that back down again. And there we have the honey vented. It's really good. I like this one. It keeps the model nice and strong, allows you to get it off the build plate without things cracking. Once you've got it to where you want, you click apply. Now, there's a couple more options here. What I'll do is I'll go back a few stages, and the good old Control and Z option, back to where we've just make the hollow button. So you can see the wireframe diagram there, wireframe box around it. What we're going to do now is click on the gyroid and option. Works exactly the same. It's just a slightly different design in shape, bone structure, I think that it is. So when it's done its calculations and it's done its thinking, computer's a bit slow today, we'll move along. There we have it. Right, so we've got the blue arrow again. So we click on the blue arrow and hold down with the left mouse button and we pull up. Now there you can see the wavy internal structure of the model. And again, if you go too high, it then closes in. Bring it back down again. And then we can have a closer look at the structure. You've got the voids in there. If your build plate on the printer has got holes in it, which some of the printers do, the liquid just drains out. If it doesn't, then you need to put drain holes in. We'll cover that at a later stage. Okay, so there we have the gyroid type infill. Also quite a nice little structure. So there we have it. So let's Alt-H the models back into the work environment. And that concludes the video. What we'll do the next video, I'll put together some of the aspects of how we manipulate scans, how we can fix scans that have got holes in, and some of the common problems that we see from intraoral scans. So thanks very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, please. Give it a like. Share it to people you know who might be interested or want to get into Blender4Dental. And I'll see everybody next week. Cheers.